Hi, everybody. Welcome to the October third Thursday presentation, and happy harvest, happy tiny harvest to everyone. Today we have with us Erica Massey, who's going to give us a presentation on biochar in the vineyard. Erica is a local geoscientist focusing on soil health and biochar in local Okanagan vineyards, orchards, and farms to help provide awareness, practical solutions, and R&D to farmers and the local community. Super cool. She's coming to us from Chianti at the moment, where she's been on a biochar study tour. And you can take vicarious pleasure in seeing exactly where she is. You'll be super jealous. So go ahead, Erica, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy and Kate, for inviting me. So welcome, everyone. Yeah, so I'm a local geoscientist, geologist in the Kelowna area. And I work in mining and different areas of geoscience. But I became very curious about biochar. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to show you where I am right now. Because I know a lot of you work in wine, so you'll be familiar with this. So I'm in Chianti, Italy. So I came to a biochar study or a school in Florence for 2 days. And then now we've been in Tuscany and Chianti for 3 days, looking at the agriculture and the wineries. But this, I'm not Italian, so Badia Coltibiano. They've been using biochar. They have two areas. One have been using it for 15 years in a study. And so I just literally caught a taxi over from there. And they brought us down into the cellars, and there were people living here like the 3 centuries before Christ, I guess. And so way back, this is a very old area that is just so beautiful. I'm sure some of you have been there too. So I'll just go to my presentation. And I guess that's better. Yeah, so biochar, what is it? I've just come out of a school here, the National Research Council, and there's an Italy Biochar Association. I've just come out of that. The research, there's people here from all over the world using biochar in vineyards and different applications. So I'm just going to bring a bit of what I've learned into today, because when I got the invitation to come here, I happened to be on this trip. So it's quite serendipitous. And then soil nutrients and microbes. And I've learned a lot here about circular farm practices and soil health. Okay, so. Yeah, so what is biochar? It's produced when biomass is heated at high temperatures in an oxygen-limited environment. That's the basis of it. And it's many types of biomass, whether it's wood feedstock, it can be all types of waste material. And I'll go into that in a minute. It's usually organic waste, such as agriculture, forestry, industries, or residues. And so it's highly porous. It retains water and nutrients. This is a microscopy photo of it, of the incredible textures and porosity that it has. And so it's not charcoal or ash. It's burned at a specific degree, very high heat, and with little oxygen. So the benefits of biochar in soil. So it increases the surface area for microbes and water retention. And I think of it kind of like a sponge, where all that surface area gives a place for plant nutrients, microbes, water holding capacity. And I'm learning a lot about climate change here in Italy the last 5 years, just really crazy weather. But I'll talk about it in a minute, the resilience is increased in their soil treatments where they're using biochar. And so, of course, in the Okanagan, we know how dry it is. And so it's approximately 40% less irrigation once the biochar is in the soil. And it increases cation exchange capacity. There's a study we learned about here where it's actually helping with soil pollutants and diseases. And also leaching reduces nutrient leaching. It stays in the soil a very long time. So it's basically capturing carbon and putting it into the soil. There was a professor out of the University of Denmark who spoke this week, and he's a geologist like me, actually, but he used this, there's a way of taking, say, your feedstock that's in your vineyard and converting that into a volume of prunings and per hectare, and then the converting to biochar and how much carbon, it's a carbon hydrogen ratio. And so that's how you can earn carbon credits, actually. So this is a whole new economy, it's a carbon economy. But he's developed a brand new, he's just released a published peer-reviewed paper on this, on the permanence of CO2 sequestration. And is well over 1,000 years, it could be more. It helps with pH remediation. And so the benefits, we've thought of all the benefits, the more you start thinking about it. Fire smart programs, removal of wood debris. It's a very clean burn. And so we're going to talk about more vineyard here today, but it's across the board useful in many different ways. So my journey started exactly a year ago. I went to Peru and I saw these biochar ovens, and this is where I got curious about it. And so this is a practice that thousands of years ago the Amazonian indigenous people used to have healthy soils. So I almost feel like we're learning about remembering these practices. And so I met this amazing man, David, in the Okanagan. He helped build a Kontiki oven because I wanted to see how this is done in Canada. And it's not really being done in British Columbia. And in Quebec, there's some production there. But anyways, we did a demo. This is called a Kontiki. It's a double-walled burner. And we put the vine prunings in there, and no smoke. It was a clean burn. And there were biologists that came, people from the local fire department, Kelowna, farmers. And it was really, really incredible to see how the biochar was made. There's different kinds of ovens. I'm going to talk at the end more about the practicality of in a vineyard of the scale and what how you can create biochar. So this is this week right here in Florence. So this is iChar, is the Italy Biochar Center. And so the vineyards in Italy here are working together. And so this was the first ever biochar in viticulture event. And so there are people from Europe, US, actually there's 2 people from the US, no one else from Canada, Croatia, South America. This man here, he owns the winery where we were today that I just showed you. And this man here, Alessandro, he's the president of the iChar Institute. And so I'll just give you some of the academic, because this is a R&D type of call. It was very much a lot of research about viticulture and soil treatments. And so you can see the titles. I just put these as a few examples: biochar and viticulture, resilience, and elemental analysis. applications in agriculture, the permanence of biochar. And we had professors join us from Israel, Australia, kind of go through that in a minute. So we think about the carbon cycle, and basically we know that how the CO2 works with plant life, but putting back, like what I've learned, I've gone to vineyards and I've learned that most are chipping the prunings and putting it back in the soil. And so that puts back some of the carbon, but then there's soil respiration of about 50%. But the biochar cycle, and so what they're really finding is that the biochar cycle is actually CO2 negative. It's actually storing the carbon back into the soil. And so it's got so many benefits to it. And of course, it's the process that it burns at is called pyrolysis. I'll show you in a minute more about that. And so there's a lot of industrial applications where they're burning the biochar just to produce heat and electricity. This is a talk on biochar and vineyard resilience. And so this is a vineyard in Italy here. Here's the paper, quite recent. So they apply the biochar through the rows. There's two different ways different soil treatments are. Usually they till it right into the rows. And unless you're replanting, the other way is to plant, to put the biochar in the soil before you even plant. And so this was the soil water content, the plant water, and the fine roots, the biomass were studied. All right, I kind of went through this already, but this is a nice illustration of the biochar going into the soil and its water holding capacity and its bulk density is increased. Bulk density is really important, if you have compacted soils. So those are two of the really big solutions that come with biochar. And so I'm going to go through some of the papers here. So this is a field experiment on biochar and viticulture in Tuscany. And so this map shows you the area that I'm in. And so there's 3 organic vineyards for 2 years with 2 hectares of soil treatments with biochar. And there's another study here with a 5-year study. And then there's another vineyard at 6 years. And then we went to this vineyard just yesterday and today, 15-year study. So this isn't something just new. There's a lot of research around this. And so all of the research in Italy for the vineyards is through the National Research Council. They work together with funding. And so this vineyard I really thought was important because it's a 15-year study and what they found. And they applied it to the, like I said, the inter-row space of the vineyard using a spreader. It was incorporated into soil about 0.3 meters. And so they set up their study. Here you can see they did 3 treatments. So there's a control, just your usual soil in your vineyard. And then the second treatment was biochar, so 20 tons per hectare. And then the third treatment, the third type was biochar with 40 tons per hectare. And they did 5 replicates for each treatment. So that's how they set up their vineyard here. And so here you can see the microscopic surface area of the biochar. This is why the water retention and the, hosting more microbial life is possible in the soil. And so this is something I would like to do as soon as possible, is get our local Okanagan vineyard, each vine, each grape type has its own elemental analysis. And so this specific vine was 77.81% carbon. And so I'll show you in a minute why that's so important. That is how it's converted into carbon credits later. If that could be helpful to, it's part of this carbon economy, right? And so here they have treatments with the biochar and then no biochar. We actually tasted wine grown with and without it. And so here's some of the results. Oh, actually, this is what was here? So here's another study, a long-term biochar application. And so they did a control, some studies use 2 applications, like double the application of biochar. So they're studying how much biochar is needed for ultimate results. And so this was interesting about microbial biomass. And so something I'm personally really interested is microbial life in the soil. I think many people kind of think, no, a lot of soil is dead. You know, how can we rebuild our soils and rebuild our soil health? And so this study here, forget which country this came from. Oh yeah, this is the Tuscan vineyard and the long-term effects of soil biota in or microbial life in the Tuscan vineyard. So a single biochar application promoted the increase of soil biological quality around 25% after a 10-year study. All right. So this is another study. Here's the authors in the Tuscany area. And of course, I'm sure yield is really important. So the grape production in this study it was a study from 2010 to 2019. I believe it's still ongoing. But the grape production increased up to 50% of the plots that were treated with biochar. And whether it was a single or a double dose of biochar didn't seem to matter. And so there's a lot of information on increasing yield. And so the conclusions of this study was that biochar decreases the soil bulk density and increases the soil water content. It increases in organic carbon levels in the soil and stabilization of carbon content over time. There was no negative impact on chemical and biological fertility in the soil. And the biochar increased the soil pH. That was more of the soil chemical dynamics. And I talked about the biological soil quality and the increase in the grape yield. All right, so here's another soil treatment. And I'm so excited about this because if we could do this in the Okanagan and have, a vineyard that you have just a portion of that that we can do a soil treatment, I think it would be really incredible because this is now many years in the makings that some of these countries are doing these. So anyway, of course, it has to do with the soil type. So this is a silty clay. And I know we have a lot of sand and sandy, silty clays in the Okanagan. And so one thing is that some of the studies or some of the vineyards, well, some that are seeing that it's important for sure is to use compost and get the nutrients into the biochar. The benefits are really much greater. And so this speaker was talking, this is from France, actually, this study for French, it was a French vineyard. And he talked about the change in precipitation and rainfall, and that there's a certain vegetative period where vines need a certain amount of water. And the last 2 years, it's been about half the water that they usually get. And so these countries are also dealing with, dry climates like we have, are drier than usual. And so the water retention and the resilience of the plants is really showing up in these studies. And so this vine, it was about 60% carbon. So this value is really important for each vineyard. There's going to be like a general carbon amount, but it's a range. This is a high pH soil of 9. And of course, they used compost. They compared biochar and compost, and with this ratio of 2 tons of biochar to 6 tons of compost. Yeah, so in France, this study, they said there's decrease in rainfall when they really need it. There's a higher yield or risk of yield loss and heat stress and the aggravation of the soil. And so this is another one in France. And I'm just showing you this because these are soil treatments that these vineyards are doing. And so like a treatment one was they're using different amounts of biochar per hectare and in ratio to compost. All right, so this is just a simple diagram of so I just saw today at the vineyard we were at, they use their grape skins as compost. And this is just an overview today. I'm just bringing some information, overview of information. So biochar can be used as in gasification equipment to either produce energy or biochar. So I'll show you in a minute an olive orchard we are at that's using the local vineyard prunings to power their distillery. And so here's just a general carbon sequestration calculation. And so for carbon credits and with this carbon economy, biochar is becoming one of the top ways of sequestering carbon. And so, like I said before, vineyards this is something we should look at, I think, is carbon credits, and there's about 2.5 credits per ton. And actually at this conference and at the tour, the CEO and founder of Carbon Sync is here. And so I've talked to them about our vineyards and just how we can do these calculations. This was a man from Australia. He was brilliant. So he's been studying the microbial life, like biochar and microbial activity, and actually measuring. He said it's almost like a battery. It's like a microbial fuel cell. Putting the carbon in the soil adds so much potential difference. And so I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it was really interesting. So Kristen, she's here. She's been on the school and the tour through the vineyards with me. She's with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so the U.S. is really using biochar in all types of applications for agriculture, vineyards. The forestry industry is set up. They're even incentivizing, I'm not sure how they're incentivizing, but paying farmers to produce biochar. And so she gave a very good talk about a vineyard, actually a vineyard with 2 treatments they did. And she talked about just looking at yield and tons per acre. And again, they're comparing just biochar or adding biochar and compost. So she spoke about Monterey specifics. So I'm newer to the wine industry, so probably some of you will know this in California. So they're using biochar in vineyards in California. So this Monterey Pacific, it's a very good paper. I can give you the PDF of it. And they have, I think it's, Kristen spoke on this, it's 15,000 acres. The yield increase is so it's without a shadow of a doubt, all their data that they're now going to put biochar in all of their entire vineyard. It's been a treatment test till now. So their harvest yields were increased by an average of more than 35%, where biochar and compost were applied together. And in the lowest yielding harvest years, all treatments showed exceptionally high percentage of yield improvement, with compost and biochar greater than 70% in the third harvest. So the economic impact, it's in the paper. I can send it to you, Kate, or if you wanted to distribute this. But the additional revenue per acre where biochar compost were applied is they have that in the paper. And the grape quality wasn't significantly affected. Okay, so where was this study? Just trying to remember. I think this is in Croatia. No, this is in Italy, another one. So you can see this is just some test soil treatments they're doing at another vineyard, and they're doing all types of data on the alcohol content, tartaric acid. I guess, you know, those are important. And so there's a lot of data out there. So on all these soil treatments they're doing in the vineyards. So we went to a facility called Record just out of Florence, and this is 2 days ago. And so this facility produces biochar for industrial use. So they're using sludge mostly. So the biomass is, so we're talking about vineyards here, and of course we have our orchards in the Okanagan, but there's so many types of biomass, but they're using sludge, and they're using, they have more of an industrial biochar, and it's being used in steel making. They're leaching the potassium and nutrients out of the wood, out of the biochar, construction materials, cement. And when these applications are used, it can, people who buy them can get carbon credits. It comes back to that carbon sequestration. One of the, they even are making sports equipment out of the biochar. Like it's adding the carbon to there's snowboards actually we saw. And then there's a soil amendment, which is vineyards, orchards, farming, and food production, which is a much higher quality biochar for consumption. So this was yesterday. We went to an olive orchard plant. So I was thinking about all our apples and pears and peaches and cherries and our wonderful fruit in the Okanagan. But this was an olive oil plantation and our vineyard, or you call it. And so they're actually, so they have a farm cooperative, over 600 farmers in the region that work together. And so these prunings, these are from a local vineyard, and they make bales out of the vines. And their sole purpose here is to, we were asked not to share pictures of the equipment because it's also a research center, but they're burning the biochar, so they're creating the biochar, and then they're making pellets out of it. And then it goes into a gasification system, which provides the heat and electricity to run this olive orchard or plant. And so the other thing they're producing from the gasification unit is a wood distillate. It's also called wood vinegar. And they had large containers of this wood vinegar. It's a condensate. It's almost it's like liquid smoke, and it's they're using it for all types of applications, but it's very good for helping seed germination and helping with as a almost like a pesticide, or it's got so many applications to it. It's really interesting as a byproduct when creating the biochar. And so here's the olives, and you can see over here is the vineyard prunings. So I was thinking, well, what about the Okanagan? We've got vineyards with prunings. We've got lots of fruit. I have no idea if any of this is being done yet. It's just seeing how the farmers are working together with their waste materials and creating energy from it. And so this company, the olives and grapes I've seen today, they're just all growing next to each other through the Tuscany or the Chianti region that I'm in. And so Yanmar is the company with the olive oil plant. And so they have a farm circular system. And again, there's over 600 farmers that work together in this. So they have the pruning off the vineyard prunings. They harvest it, they make their pellets. Those go into a gasification that produces all of their heat and electricity to run the plant. And there's other benefits like the carbon credits, of course. And so here's the farmers, how they had this at the facility, showing them also putting it into the soil. They also grow vegetables. So they show zucchini weight. Here you can see the blue is treated with biochar, the soil, and the orange is not treated. So what I'm seeing is that the yields are higher, when you have the biochar added to the soil. There's all types of papers. So this is just that wood vinegar and all of the benefits. It's also an insect repellent, disease control. Yeah, so I just put this on here because so far I've been learning that the vineyards are getting the prunings are going into wood chips and then putting back in the soil. And so this doesn't equate to biochar at all, because with biochar, if the prunings are burned with and producing the biochar, then 50% of the plant material kept in the soil is a stable form instead of decomposing. And so I'll go into it in a minute. Just there's different kinds of ways to create biochar, really, really inexpensive. And then there's, other ways that it depends on how expansive it needs to be, right? So I have a kiln. I'm just, this is kind of my way of starting and doing demos. So I'd be glad to do a demo at a vineyard just to see how the biochar is made. The one thing about a Kentucky kiln, and I've spoken to the carbon sink here and the different vineyard managers here during my time, and it's a lower biochar quality, so it actually can't be standardized with carbon credits. But it's a great way for a smaller orchard or farmer or vineyard to process their prunings into biochar so that they can start putting into their soil. So this is what I'm actually looking at getting. I would like to get 2 of them, but it's not this exact brand, but it's a mobile biochar burner. And this can go to the vineyard, and it can, you have your stockpile there. We show up and we process your stockpile for you, and you're left with some biochar. And on that note, we know this freeze in January has really affected the farmers, whether it's fruit orchards or vineyards. There's large stockpiles of wood debris or feedstock, what we call feedstock. And so in my mind, it makes sense logistically is to have a mobile unit that can come and process the biochar. And it'd have to be within a certain kilometer range. But yeah, so then you can get, this is years down the road, I envision having these gasification units because facilities can create their own heat and energy. So here's just a nice diagram again of the pyrolysis unit that burns the biochar and either creates energy, gas, heat, electricity, or the biochar that can be used for soil treatments. There's really fancy units. There's all types of ways to produce biochar. I also have a PDF of a manual. It's a manual for biochar carbon removal. And so this is the International Biochar Initiative. The chair of IBI is here at this event, so I've got to know her. And she's Italian, but she's really works on a global scale. So actually, when I told her about the Okanagan, she's pretty excited that we could do something here. And I don't know if there's a man from Spain here who is in a similar situation in Spain. They haven't quite started to integrate biochar agriculture practices. And so him and I were talking about how we could, support our region. So this was produced by the Australians. I can also send you the PDF of this. It's a farmer's guide. It's over 200 pages. So I'm just giving a simple overview today, but if you'd like to learn more, this is a great, it's probably the best resource. It's like a book. And so I just thought I'd put this in here because it's really, even the last 2 years, you can see that the knowledge and the use of biochar is really increasing in different sectors. And so that was my my presentation. I could take some questions. I can also show you a bit more of the soil treatments that were done here in Chianti that I saw today. So it's up to you. How are we doing for time?
We have 20 minutes. You have a lot of time.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, if you, I just need to get the slides here. So does anything, do you have any of this information? Is it all new, or I'm just curious if anyone has, come across this before or started to implement it or look into it yet?
Hi, Erica. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, it's Darren Bauer.
Hi.
I'm with Pure Life Carbon
Okay.
here in Alberta. And I've actually done some trials in Naramata with Matt Rademacher from Little Engine about 4 years ago. Our biochar is bamboo.
Oh, great.
And we specify, you can look us up, purelifecarbon.com, but we specialize in the world's first growless, soilless growing medium, but we make it out of bamboo. So we have a standalone product that you can do seed to bloom right into our soil that never wears out. But
interesting. Where do you get the bamboo? I'm wondering, because in Canada.
Yeah, we're importing it. We're importing it, and we're building another factory in Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, Africa, because we're replacing dirt for hydroponics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a different, yeah, that's
right, but we got our product in the Naramata vineyards right now. That's been trialed for 3 years.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been invited from David Rylands, who's a greenhouse or a vineyard owner in Naramata. And that's how, and I've been following this for 4 years, but then you had your catastrophe last year, which
Mhm.
moving you into getting biochar in this replant. So I'm very interested in working with you and
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
what you've shown there with your slides. Yeah, we've been in this space for over 7 years and quite
That's
knowledgeable.
great. That's great to hear. And yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in talking to you because you know, yeah, I'd like to talk about soil because when you're not using soil, I'm like what I'm learning here. I mean, the soil there's so many microbes in the soil. They actually, I'm starting an R&D project too that might interest you. The University of Northern BC is giving me a lab and a greenhouse because they're pretty excited about this soil treatment, but it's to measure the microbial life in the soil
Right.
and adding nutrition to the soil. So I think there's just different ways to look at it, and there's solutions, right? And to build the resilience in the plant. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what
I
this is all about, Erica. And
yeah.
what you're doing here is soil mediation. So there's a certain blend per
Mhm.
acre. We've done it. We've been there. We're specializing in standalone soil medium, but because our product is too expensive for soil mediation, but there's other products that will work well.
Yeah, so yeah, it's great to know. I mean, there's different ways of doing things.
So, Darren, has Little Engine, are they doing any, are they, do they have a control winemaking part of this where they're comparing wine made from the two different treatments?
No,
Because
no.
I mean, I think that would be of the most interest to this group. But, and
Mhm.
Erica, you said you tasted wine as part of the study group. Can you tell us about
Yes.
that?
Yeah,
Sorry,
it was
Hans, and I'll get to you
interesting.
in a sec, Hans. Sorry.
Yeah, it was there wasn't a lot of taste difference, but we needed to fill out a whole questionnaire and compare.
Mhm.
And yeah, I can't say that I noticed a lot of difference, so I'm not sure it really
Yeah.
does affect the taste at
And
this
there
point.
wasn't any anecdotal talk amongst winemakers or vineyard managers or anything,
Yeah, not of that.
just
It's
in terms of yields. Yeah, yeah. Hans,
yeah, I think one of the most important things that I've learned other than the soil treatments and is that you know, is our agricultural practices need to adjust to how the climate is changing
yeah,
quite fast. I don't know, I don't feel it so much as in the Okanagan as it is here, what they're showing me. But the one study showed like the elevation is going to have to be higher unless we can start building resilient soils. So it's and quickly, like not holding off on it. So
right,
yeah.
right.
And that's a global issue.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hans, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, really interesting. Just a couple of points. Some researchers at the Summerland Research Station have done some small-scale experimentation with biochar over the last few years. But I mean, one of the big barriers to this is really the cost of the material. And as long as this does not come down, I don't really see how broad-scale application will be feasible. There are potentials, especially in BC, in conjunction with forestry. I do see sort of a closed circuit processing unit that processes slash piles in clear cuts on site, just for production of biochar, and that this would basically be self-feeding in terms of energy. to produce
Yeah.
the heat from the gas that is produced at the same time. But on a
Mhm.
small scale, making biochar on a small scale, you know, I would love to see more accurate life cycle analysis in terms of energy in and carbon out, and carbon in and carbon out. I'm not quite sure how the equation looks there, but I do have some doubts. It's not quite
I
sure.
think there is so much peer-reviewed research. I might have it handy here, but it's pages of it and the life cycle analysis. And see, that's what the farming community has done here, is they're working together on waste. What was waste is no longer waste.
Yeah.
And there's another revenue stream here in the carbon economy. When farmers start to apply the biochar practice. And so I actually think there's an opportunity. It doesn't need to cost a lot. I think the prunings are already there. There's actually a huge surplus right now. From what I'm seeing is there's stockpiles that are bigger than 2 houses right now. As I drive around, I see this at some of the vineyards. What is the plans? They can't burn it up in the atmosphere. They can't take it to the landfill. So these stockpiles could be processed into biochar, and it actually could be sold. It's really going up in value, or it could be implemented back into the soil as a treatment part of the vineyard to try out. Yeah, so I can see you, and also if it's a smaller operation, they could have a kiln and it might cost $500,000, like not a huge investment just for regular prunings, but
Yeah, could you describe a
Oh.
little bit further how the Kontiki kiln works? Because
sure.
I looked at
Yeah, I had the study here from today in the vineyard, but yeah, I've got some more. Let me see. I've got my PowerPoint here. I'll just show you a picture of it. Okay, I'll share screen. And I'm in talks with a company that just to service the Okanagan Valley, the fruit, the prunings from the fruit and the vineyards. And so I'm just putting together to have a mobile burner as a service. But this Kontiki kiln, so David's on here, he taught me how to make these. We have a couple people that can build them for the vineyards at pretty low cost. And so they're stacked in a certain way, face straight up. They're not just piled in. And then it's lit from the top. And so this double-walled, I don't know if this is I need to maybe go like this. Yeah, that's bigger now, right? So this double wall, so what happens, it's, whoops, that's another unit. So along the bottom here, the outside wall is off the ground. And so what happens is you can actually see the fire burning the smoke. So this is burning full out in there, vine prunings, and there's no smoke. You could walk by it and there's no smoke. Now there's still some other gases like greenhouse emission gases that are still emitting, like methane. Like we know it when you burn things, there's other gases, but it's pretty incredible to see it burn its own smoke. It's the pyrolysis effect. So basically it's creating a current of air that goes around and around the wall. And so it's just going back into itself. And here's the vine prunings. You just feed it at a regular rate, not too fast, not too slow. And then at the end, it's washed. So it's really important to wash it with water. and then this gets tipped over and you've got a pile of biochar on the ground. It's really simple to do, and it's applicable to any size of operation. I've just seen the big stockpiles. I think, how do you process all of those, you know? So the one thing that I've learned here is that stockpiles, the large ones, will start to ferment, and they need to be processed, not sit there for too long. Does that answer some questions? There's all types of burnos. If you go on YouTube, there's all types of prototypes too. Oh, and David's here. David taught me how to make a kontiki. Hi, David. And so he's
Hi,
in the
Erica.
Okanagan. Yeah.
What a great job you're doing and have done. I do so look forward to helping you however I can. I got some fires burning up here now too. We've got to get matched back together for a little while so we can talk a few things out. But two quick items. Biochar needs to be famous for saving water and for purifying water while we farm. Can do that all at once. And the other thing is Henry Ford inadvertently got us going in the wrong direction, and we put fossil fuels up into the atmosphere. We've misplaced a resource into the atmosphere. Not good. So making biochar addresses two things: water and air, of course, while you look after the soil. It's a great gift from the earth, so we need to exploit it. Thank you so much. Doing a great job. See you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and so David has another burner. He developed, he's kind of got an engineering mind. So, and there's someone else who came to this kontiki burn. He works in the Kelowna fire department, assistant, in there, and he was so blown away by this. He went home and he built his own biochar oven that afternoon out of, he has a metalworking area. So we thought of just helping, whether it's a kontiki oven or I'm in the process of getting a mobile burner. It actually takes 6 months earliest to get one that I could help service the vineyards and orchards. And I'd be really excited to do treatments like I've learned in Italy. I now have colleagues all over the world doing soil treatments in vineyards. So the support is incredible if we wanted to do that at a couple of vineyards in the Okanagan and keep the cost low. And I'm learning a lot about this carbon economy. I think there's a lot of benefits with carbon credits that can be implemented as an additional solution. So this is meant as an overview, and if anyone would like to talk further with me or myself or David or others, I'd love to keep the conversation going.
So I guess that's a question for Kate. We could probably put that Australian guide for growers on our website, do you think? Or a link to it?
Yeah, the BC Wine Grape Council is just updating our website, so we'll certainly look towards adding some of those resources.
Yeah. Erica, so you talked about the long-term sequestration of CO2, and maybe you answered this question, but how does that compare with like chipping and composting?
So what was the question?
So you talked about the long-term sequestration being like 1,000 years versus composting, but so what is the time frame for chipping and composting? Because I think that's mostly what happens right now to vine.
Yes, yeah. I'm not too familiar with the length of time as part of an experiment of how long those wood chips take to break down. But it's not, it doesn't have it's not a practice that keeps the carbon in the soil.
I mean,
and it doesn't have the holding. So there's so many benefits to, the biochar has this incredible capacity to hold on to water, which is so important for the Okanagan and the increase in microbial life, whereas the chips just decompose and One thing, two people at this in Italy here have told me something. Actually, one is in Switzerland, a farmer. He's actually with Carbon Zinc. They said when you're recycling the chips of the plant back into the soil over and over and over again, it's its own DNA, and it actually is not helping them build resilience. So there's information out there that I've heard of before, but I don't know how long the compost and that. I think it's pretty quick. Maybe one of the vineyard managers would know that are working out there.
Hans has his hand up, maybe.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I mean, in terms of, I'm an organic farmer, so I have some familiarity with the use of biochar. I haven't used it myself, but I've used similar zeolite. And that the one thing, I mean, the reason why you mix compost with biochar is basically to preload the biochar with nutrients. Otherwise, the biochar applied to the soil directly will actually draw nutrients from the soil and store them there. So you want to ensure that you're not getting a deficiency, a short-term deficiency while applying biochar. But the other thing I wanted to comment on, you mentioned the use of potentially municipal waste for making biochar. I would really recommend against this. There is more and more evidence of PFAS in municipal sludge that is being applied to farmland. And there is actually, I think it is the state of Maine that has actually prohibited the application of municipal waste to farmland because they have found so much PFAS residue in building up in the soil now that
that's exactly okay. So what the Record, the huge lab that we went to yesterday, the sludge in that is only to make like construction materials and snowboard. It's the industrial. So, and they're actually they have a leaching equipment that they're taking like the sludge. So that doesn't get used for agriculture. It's a separate type of biomass. So it's a good point. It's not for at all. And actually I was fascinated by the steel making. So they have a lot of research going on at Record in Florence. And I mean, they have all the spectrometers, they have the labs, I mean, all the instruments you need, but they're looking at the steel making industry because being a geologist, I work in mine pits and I've been at a coal mine. Our coal in BC gets shipped to China and it's for steel making. So think about all that pathway for that coal to take. So making, say it's sludge or, this biomass and creating biochar from it and making steel. So they're really looking at different applications. So it's a good point, Hans. It's very, very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, it strengthens steel. We've done some stuff with Rio Tinto.
Okay.
And you can add it to cement. I mean, yeah, there's so many applications. But one thing to realize, your feedstock is very important. And that's why we use bamboo, is because of the molecular structure and its water holding capabilities. And so, yeah, not any feedstock is going to be as good as another feedstock.
Yes.
So that's just,
that's why we need to test it. So my next step is I do have one or two of the vineyards that are going to give me, they said they'd give me some prunings and I'll send that to the lab. They'll carbonize it and we'll get the lab data on it because that can actually be converted into, that's how they calculate the carbon credits that farmers can be getting. But yeah, bamboo and I think hemp, they're using rice, even they're using the avocado seeds, like coconut husks. So things that were considered waste, can be actually, so much can be done with it with this process. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. There's a lot of food for thought here, and a lot of resources that you've mentioned that we'll put up when Kate sends out the conclusion of our talk today, so that people can watch the recording and delve into it some more. And yeah,
Okay.
I think we will be seeing a lot more on this topic in the years coming up. So thanks a lot. Enjoy Italy.
Yeah. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
think we'll have-
Biochar brought me to Italy. You just get into
Right.
something, you never know where it's going to take you, right?
Yeah, I don't
Right.
mind if it takes me to Italy either. So,
Yeah. It's
so
not a thing. Yeah.
thanks everybody for joining. Tell your colleagues about the presentation and where they can see the recording. And
So for-
next
for-
Yeah.
our next session is November 21st, and with a presentation to be determined, to be announced. And we'll see you next time. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you
great.
very much. Bye for now.